that was awesome. Really nice diving. Rockfish like this big. Never seen them that big. Big lingcod, we saw like a 3-footer out there. Visibility was like a 7, 8 out of 10 for the Pacific Northwest.
So as a special surprise, I actually have Bruce Higgins, the guy that curated this park. He started 45 years ago.
Oh, yeah.
And he's here right now.
Oh, that's cool.
So if you want to go meet him.
Yeah. Give him a handshake or something.
Heck yeah, dude.
And I'd be pretty proud of myself if I was responsible for an epic spot like this. You know, kudos to him.
Yeah, dude.
Yeah.
All right, cool. Let's go meet Bruce.
Yeah, this is a beautiful park. We just came out here from British Columbia this morning just to dive this spot. Now here, you're responsible for this, or partially responsible?
I'm one of the instigators. Yeah.
Man, it's amazing. It's amazing. I can't believe the rockfish that are out here, man. They're like this big. Makes me feel bad because I dive all over British Columbia. I never seen them that big.
I didn't found the park. There was another group that was doing that back in 1970. The diving community was hoping the state would get active about having underwater parks, but the problem was that they were moving so slowly that everybody got, you know, like, hey, come on, let's get going. So the city got started, and then the group that was initially involved with founding the park and stuff, they were connected with a dive store, and it went out of business. So nothing was happening. And then they started having fatalities in the park. So that became a big deal.
Yeah, liability and stuff. I saw online you have to be certified to dive here too.
Right.
Probably part of the reasoning behind it.
We got involved primarily just trying to maintain things here in the park. We did a map of what the park looked like and used that as fuel for trying to get the city to be a little bit more engaged in things. And then like I was mentioning to Sam, we were able to put out buoys, and that was not only to define the area, but the state got involved because there's a fishing pier south of here, so divers weren't going to be able to dive the fishing pier. So then they said, well, we'll put in a mitigation reef here in the underwater park. So in '79 they got going with that, and we had put out a few buoys to help define what the park was, but during that period they extended the park up north to those furthest white buoys that you see, and that was because the initial park was very, very small. It was primarily the DeLion dry dock. That's why it became a park, and it was sunk in 1935, so very mature. So
1935, that's probably one of those big lurkers out there.
Yeah, exactly. And then we got started with the buoys. Then we got started working on the trail system so that people could find their way around, and that made it a lot safer. Because what happens is now people aren't lost. And then the advantage of the trail system was that it meant we could return to the same spot over and over again to be able to do things. And so one of the early things that we got going on was the city got a donation of a tugboat, so we put that further south in the park because that was north in the park at the time. And then we placed other vessels using them as one-way freighters. We'd fill them with rocks, take them out and let them sink, and then that was habitat for the rockfish and the lingcod.
I saw that, big ships with piles of rocks and pillars and stuff.
The city and those of us involved didn't want it to be just a dump. So what we did is we set aside areas that are specific for certain things. So there are areas with boats, and then there's other areas with concrete. There are other areas with rocks. So we made some rock cairns, and that's been the most recent effort. So we kind of had themes for 5 or 6 years at a time. In the late 90s we were working specifically on lingcod because there were lingcod further south in the park, but we didn't really have the correct kind of habitat for them further north. So that's why we started adding substrate for that. And then we moved into making rock cairns more recently, specifically for rockfish.
So really methodical then.
Just slow but sure, so that's what's still going on. So the way we have the leverage of what we do is we have a tiered system that we use to approach what we do. And so the first tier is safety. So for us, that's the buoys, the trails, and signage. And I don't know if you were able to see any of the signs we have underwater.
I saw a few of the memorials.
So we've, trying to help people with navigation and make it safer. Then the second tier is security. and that's where we try to stop poaching, theft of park property, which people have tried to steal some of the stuff.
Floats and
underwater.
stuff, yeah, I could see that too.
And then
I saw two rockfish head coming in. I'm thinking maybe sea lion let it go.
Those are and they're probably not rockfish. Those are probably lingcod because they're
no, they were the orangey.
Okay. We put out these logs specifically for the harbor seals and sea lions. The other security one is we have an invasive species, two of them here, Didenum and Siona. We try to keep those guys in remission. After that tier, we work on the maintenance side of things, and that's where we're replacing buoys and replacing structures that are failing or getting blown over in storms and so on. And then last but not least, 25% or less of our time is working on improvements and changes. So that's kind of what I was working on today. Chipping away on moving another bunch of rocks that I suspect these rocks were from a barge that was burned here back in the 60s, because as I dug underneath one of the rocks to pick it up, there was a bunch of planking and probably looked like it was burned, but it was a little hard to tell with all the black. But the park isn't all that deep.
No.
The farthest boundary of the park is usually about 45 feet on.
That's just nice for freediving.
Exactly.
It's not a lot of the artificial reefs in BC start around 70, 80 feet. That's like upper limits of what I want to dive recreational.
Sure, yeah.
Yeah, so here like the majority, it seemed around 10, 12 meters, which is like perfect for breath hold diving.
Right.
Yeah. At least you get some bottom time to explore and find stuff.
Yeah. Did you get a chance to see the Lopez pontoon?
No, I think that's where we dove the pontoon. Yeah,
between the two.
Yeah, that's beautiful, man.
Yeah,
big 3.5 foot ling. Those rockfish are massive.
Yeah, that's
big
come out to
schools
be
of
a nice
perch.
feature.
Yeah, that's great.
And since it's concrete, it should have a good life.
Yeah, it lasts forever.
So Bruce, let me ask you something. 45 years ago, did you think that this many divers would be coming out here to play and see and do, and when you first started playing around?
It was a popular park when I got involved, but the big thing is that we've been able to expand it.
So the model I used was an arboretum. So in an arboretum, there's sort of the tulip area, and there's the rhodie area, and then there's the annuals and that kind of thing. We've tried to have diversity here by having not only the different kinds of substrate, but also working to not have everything be identical. And so that way it's interesting for everybody that comes, instead of just, you were mentioning nudies and stuff like that. Well, that's great, but there are people that want to look at fish. And it's fun to see the diving birds. For a while we were the pendulum had sort of swung, and it was lingcod. A guy was asking me, so where are the octopus? Well, the lingcod eat them. So you gotta reduce
one or the other.
Yeah, right now we happen to have some female wolf eel out on the park boundary, and that's we've seen 2 last year and then 1 this year, and this gal's overwintered, so that's pretty neat. We can tell it's a gal, very narrow face. We'll see. But back to your question about expectation, I just wanted a place that was a little bit more accessible, in contrast with what I saw the state doing and what I saw other groups trying to do. So in the grand scheme of things, books on outdoor recreation sort of remind everybody that there's a spectrum. So one end of the spectrum, it's natively beautiful, and the other end of the spectrum is Disneyland, where nothing was native. It was a parking lot, and he decided to build a park. We're trying to be in the middle. We're trying to accommodate nature, but by the same token, we know that if all you want to do is go see sand, there's 100 places you can go do that. So let's go put stuff down that is appropriate. That's part of the reason we've been using rocks and all that kind of stuff.
Natural,
And for years we were using wooden boats because this area is so carbon poor, but the state got all excited about that because they didn't think of them as permanent. And so the fish would get attracted, and then the wood would be gone, and then the fish would be gone. So we transitioned in a few fiberglass boats, which are probably most of the ones you saw. We're trying to have a balancing act on things.
Do you have other projects experience that you did or are doing, or is this like your baby? Or
Well, years ago, I was involved with the Washington Scuba Alliance, and they were trying to have more parks and kind of like the Canadians with warships and putting down vessels and stuff. But our Department of Natural Resources was all basically against that. Now I'm on a soapbox. There are only two species here in Puget Sound, if you haven't figured it out: orca and salmon. And so if you're not an orca and you're not a salmon, you don't exist. I think that's very narrow-minded, but that's the way our state has been voting for now over a decade. I'm not saying no to salmon and orca, but I'm a firm believer in the food pyramid, and you gotta support the guys at the bottom of the food web to have anybody at the top. So we spend a lot of time on things at the base of the food web. Yesterday we hauled out a bunch of branches, and they're for what I call a fish blind. And so the baby fish can hide in it. The worms eat the wood. Everybody likes to eat the little worms. And so now you have something at the bottom of the food web. One of the places further out, we've specifically tried to do things for shrimp, because everybody likes to eat shrimp. We're working on those kinds of projects instead of other ones. But I tried to do things with the Washington Scuba Alliance, and it turns out it was just me showing up. You know, after a while, it's like I'd rather be investing the time here than all over the state.
focus on one thing.
Yeah, try to do one thing right instead of a whole bunch of things is
Quality
partially
over quantity.
Yeah.
I think you get an A+ on this
Awesome,
one.
Bruce.
Yeah.
Thanks, man. Yeah, us divers here in the PNW, man, we love this spot, and you know, definitely appreciate it.
Amazing that people care so much. And it's interesting too. I never would have thought that so much thought would have gone into creating specific habitats for each individual species that's out there.
If you had to take a guess, how many volunteer hours do you think has gone in here?
Well, I do a report for the city every year, a summary of what we got done, and I estimate that we're putting in about 1,500 hours of volunteer time a year. But that only got really started in 91 when I stopped teaching. The reality is that it's like you were alluding to, it's not just the time, it's the people care. So that's helped a lot with the donations, and we're not asking the city for money. We look on volunteers, and it's time and equipment and wear and tear and gloves and busting stuff up because it gets busted up. Part of the reason I'm in a wetsuit is that for the repair bill on my dry suit, when I had a dry suit, it was more than the cost of a new wetsuit every year. So I just said, I'll just get a new wetsuit every year. And that way it works much, much better.
A little quicker to put on too.
Well, and I'm not concerned when I have a pinhole here or a pinhole there. It's not the end of the world. I'm not wasting all my time trying to chase down where's that leak today. Anyways, lots of people have pitched in. Things have sort of tapered off because I've had a lot of people retiring and moving further away. But we typically have about 15 study volunteers a year, and we used to have 30. But that's really nice because many hands makes light work.
Teamwork,
so,
man.
Yeah, teamwork is right. So
That's for sure.
Before you get chilly, you're standing here.
Yeah. Look at these feet, man. You see those feet?
Yeah.
Look at that.
We're diving, man.
Oh man.
Small price to pay. Cool, man. Well, thanks for your time, and thanks for the history, and thanks for creating this park. Right?
Yeah. Well, it's been a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Thank you, Bruce, man. I really respect it, dude. Appreciate you.
Yeah. Me too, man. Hopefully enjoy the donut. Yeah.
Cool.
Thanks, man.
Thank you.